capital beat. There are reports that the union government is mulling over a new post, and that is of a chief investigating officer. Now, what is this CIO going to do? Now, the chiefs of CBI and the Enforcement Directorate will be reporting to the CIO. And more than this is the story, which is the real story, that current ED chief, Sanjay Mishra, in all likelihood, according to a newspaper report, will be made the first chief investigating officer of the country before he demits office on September 15th. Now, this CIO, if at all it is made, and if word is very important because the reports are all source-based, there is no confirmation from the government, neither has Sanjay Mishra said anything. Whether it has happened on the basis of the leaks, I'm not getting into that. But if at all this post is created, so whatever we have heard from the sources in the government, they say that CIO will directly report to the Prime Minister's office. That is, he will directly report to the PMO, much like the Chief of Defense Staff, that is CDS, or the National Security Advisor. He'll be a secretary rank officer. And what we have come to know from the same sources that this post will be created by the government for a better synergy between CBI and ED. Now, does this all look so simple? What will happen to the autonomy of CBI? What will happen to the CBC Act, the Delhi Establishment Act? All these are difficult questions about whom we do not know what the answers will be. But if at all this post is created, what will be the pitfalls? What could be the possible impact? Joining me now is the veteran Supreme Court lawyer, Sanjay Hegde, with us. Sanjay, thank you so much for joining. And my first question to you is that if at all this idea comes to a fruition and the post of Chief Investigating Officer is created, where Sanjay Mishra will be the first CIO of the country, your first thoughts on that?
Well, nothing prevents the government from having any officer to do anything. But all officers generally have an age of retirement. And if you continue with some officer just because you like him, then it also blocks the flow downwards, or the people further down the chain who are waiting for their promotions, they don't get promoted. This is administratively, that is why all administrators say that the old order has to change, giving way to the new. But this particular government has always invested in officers who it has found useful. Not many people in India know the name of K. Kailashnathan. He was Chief Secretary of Gujarat and has continued in some capacity or the other to be associated with the government of Gujarat ever thereafter. So chief ministers keep coming and going, but Mr. Kailashnathan is a continuing entity. So to quote Sir Humphrey Appleby, permanence is power, impermanence is impotence, rotation is castration. So that appears to be the tenor as far as this gentleman is concerned, Mr. Mishra. But I doubt whether creating a chief investigating officer merely by executive order, whether that would be possible. Right. Because in the statutory scheme of things, you have the CVC Act, you have the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, which by process of judicial interpretation also has, like the Chief Justice of India, also sitting in on the appointment of a CBI chief. Now, if the Chief Justice selects the CBI chief, and then the CBI chief in turn has to report to somebody else higher in the hierarchy over whose appointment there is no such filter, I think there is definitely an anomaly.
Right. But you said that this surely cannot happen with an executive order. I want to come to this point a little later, but what I want to ask you immediately, and that is just a few weeks back, Supreme Court and especially Justice Gavai had been asking very, very serious questions about Mr. Sanjay Mishra's extension. That why is this man so indispensable? And the center was supposed to explain all this. And in the public interest, he was allowed to continue in office of the ED as the ED chief till September 15th. Now, before he demits office, there are news reports planted that, he'll be in a higher position, he'll be having a higher authority. Now, is this not like cocking a snook at the Supreme Court and the government actually seemingly doing that?
No, it's the Supreme Court judgment is with regard to the ED chief. And then the amendments thereafter, which were made in the Act to provide for appointing somebody with a 5-year term. Those amendments have been upheld. Now, no judgment is in that sense personal, especially when it comes between the government and the court. Here, the government is not repeating him as ED chief, but is giving him some other post. Supposing he had been made a governor, could you say that that was cocking a snook at the Supreme Court? No, it's like that. The question is of pure law. Again, how is this supposed to be created? We don't know whether it is going to be by executive order or by legislation. If it is going to be by legislation, then obviously that might be challenged. If it is going to be by executive order also, that too will be challenged also on the ground that you can't do it by executive order, but by legislation alone. But neither of these factors is much of a deterrent for this government. Parliament is likely to be prorogued by the end of this month.
Right.
And Mr. Mishra is due to demit office by September 15th. So in between, there's always the power of issuing an ordinance.
Right. So again, I'm going to ask a question which many times I have asked you, and that is that will this post, if at all it is created by an executive order or by legislative means, is it going to be unconstitutional? And why I'm asking you is that, the CBI chief, the supervisory control is with the CVC. So what happens to the autonomy of CBI? Whatever little autonomy is left at CBI, will that be over? Can we just shut down the doors to an independent authority like a CBI or ED? I mean, these are questions which are staring questions, but
yeah. So strangely enough, there is a Guwahati High Court judgment which is still pending appeal, that the CBI cannot be created just by the Delhi Police Establishment Act.
Right.
The very existence of the CBI also is legally suspect. Notwithstanding that, there have been in other judgments which have provided for the manner of the appointment of the chief. And the most important thing is the reason behind those judgments, to ensure that there is an absolute independence in the agency and at the head of the agency. Now, if that independent head has to report to somebody who is there at the whims of the government, how far is it destructive of the independence of that institution itself is an open question and might be an arguable legal question. But the real position in law is forget the independence of the institution and all that. The real position in law, settled way back in Khwaja Nazir Ahmad's case in British times, is that the man who is investigating, the investigating officer, is the head of the investigation, and nobody can tell him what to do, not even the courts. But very few people actually go back to these first principles And so, yes, even if you have a independently appointed head, then the head has to report somewhere. Previously, he would be reporting to the Home Ministry. Now, between the Home Ministry and or bypassing the Home Ministry, we may have a chief investigation officer. So unless the proposal is fleshed out, either as an executive order or as a piece of legislation, we are still in the realm of speculation.
But even if it is in the realm of speculation, Mr. Hegde, how dangerous is this idea? Given the fact that you have so many cases, where ED has been unleashed against the political personalities of the country. CBI has been unleashed against the opposition leaders. Now there is an election which is just around the corner. If at all, if it is done very, very quickly, now what would be the political fallout and what are we really going to see? Is that something going to be very, very dangerous?
It is dangerous. And it is dangerous also if you put all your trust in one man, and that man appears to be only targeting one section of the general polity. So if you want to give that man as much permanence as your government, then obviously the man is beholden to you. So the danger everybody sees. The question is of the legality of it. Ultimately, governments are entitled to have people of their choice. When there was somebody hunting Veerappan, specific police officers were given the task. Here also, if the government decides that there is only this one person on whom they have full confidence, irrespective of the fact that he happens to be at the head of the institution or guiding the institution. There's nothing, for instance, which prevents the Prime Minister from appointing Mr. Mishra as the Home Minister.
Right.
Right. So it's a question of methodology, but the independence of the investigating process as well as the institution cannot be compromised, nor can the method of appointment of an independent head of those institutions be nullified by having the independently appointed person, report to somebody who is not so independently appointed.
Right. But Mr. Hegde, the government, I mean, the sources within the government have given a very simplistic explanation that, there's too much of overlap of work between CBI and ED, and therefore, to bring a better synergy between the two, this is going to be an overarching authority which will be created and which will directly report to the PMO. Yes.
They actually operate in two different areas.
Yeah.
The CBI deals with crimes under the IPC or under any other legislation. The ED deals with the proceeds of the crime. That is, if you make money from crime and then you layer it, deal with it in a manner so as to legitimize the money, that is money laundering, and that's where the ED comes in. What happens is that the mere registration of a crime also brings the ED in, because then the ED says that, these are the proceeds of the crime, and that's a separate offense, and they take people in under their custody. This is a very anomalous situation, which has been unfortunately been upheld by the Supreme Court in a 3-judge judgment in Vijay Madan Lal Chaudhary's case. That judgment is also under review. But just to tell your viewers, why is it that you now don't hear too much about the CBI, but you hear more about the ED? Because the CBI originally could not operate in various places without the consent of the state government. And many opposition-ruled states withdrew their blanket permissions earlier given to the CBI.
Right.
but there is no such limitation on the enforcement directorate. So if the CBI can't catch you, because of want of state consent, the ED can still catch you.
But
so it reminds me of that old Australian cricket saying, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. If Lily doesn't get you, Thompson must.
Right. But Mr. Hegde, do you see this as a purely political move where we are going to see more and more centralization of power by the PMO? Everything rests with PMO, whether it is the investigation, and it has happened. Like, this is what we have been seeing for the last 9 years. But now the PMO is also going to head the CIO will report to PMO, just like the NSA or the CDS does. Would you say that, this is going to be something which is going to be strange, or maybe Modi government is thinking of something which is very, very novel and we are maybe meaninglessly just sitting and criticizing?
It's people like one-point solutions, right? So this is a government that believes in one-point solutions. Now, as far as the CDS is concerned, that was a recommendation which was made after Kargil, saying that the three services should have a coordinating mechanism. Governments didn't bring that in, and it was only when General Rawat retired as army chief that he was first made CDS. So once the precedent has been set, now there is examination out here, but this is not necessarily like the armed forces. The armed forces act against external enemies on the borders. Now, against your own citizens, where you have laws which operate on separate planes, if you want a super coordinator, or what's that Italian phrase, the capo de tutti, or the head of all heads.
Super boss.
Boss. That does not actually speak much for the independence of investigators or investigation agencies.
Right. Just for the clarification of the viewers, you said that the parliament might be prorogued, and then if an ordinance is brought in, just for the clarification, so what could, since we've not seen the draft of whatever the new law the government will try and bring in, but will it subsume the CVC Act? Will it subsume the Delhi Establishment Act also? No,
whatever the law is, the same law will have to make amendments in the CVC Act and the Delhi Special Police Act. So you can have a law which will say that that there shall be this post created, and these amendments will now take place in the two acts.
In the end, what would you really say? Still, the whole story is based on the ifs and buts. If at all the government brings in something like this and creates a post of a CIO. But what would you really say towards the end when it comes to the independence of institutions, over centralization of power? What kind of a chapter is it? We are seeing many, many chapters being unfolded before 2024 elections. What would you say to this chapter?
This is again over centralization of power, over dependence on individuals, and contrary to the scheme of checks and balances within the Constitution. The constitutional structure is such that it does not entirely give power to any one authority. Here is a reverse of that process, and to that extent, it runs a coach and horses through the Constitution.
Right. So just a disclaimer for the audience again, that this report was based according to the sources. So we still do not know, we cannot verify whether the story is correct or not. But yes, I did try and speak to the people within the BJP and also the beat reporters who've been covering the Home Ministry, who said that yes, there is something like this which is in the air, but for the concrete shape, nobody knows as of now, what is going to happen really. Thank you so much, Mr. Hegde. It was wonderful having you on the program.
Thank you.
To the viewers who are watching this live discussion with Mr. Hegde, subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback, and stay tuned to the Federal. Thank you.